Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Marquis Smith. Just thought I'd give a couple tips to a couple people that are out there iRacing and wondering what you have to go through to get to an A license or B license. And I know this is probably going to sound a lot like the Surviving Rookie series, but a lot of those tips really apply throughout your entire iRacing career and the things that you learn throughout it. One of the first big things you need to really learn is consistency. Consistency is way, way more important than any kind of speed that you're ever going to have on the track. With consistency, speed comes. If you ever get in a race that has a run longer than 20 laps, which I know can be rare sometimes depending on the iRacing session that you're in, um, the more consistent you are, the more that you save your car, the more speed you're going to have and the better position you're going to be in at the end of the race. If you can avoid getting into wrecks, putting yourself into bad situations, being the person that forces three wide unless something crazy happens and you think, man, I really got to go. It's just all stuff that really comes as you develop your racecraft. Um, and with consistency, you need to have practice. Practice is very important, but mediating how much practice that you get and put yourself through is also extremely important. Um, Over practicing can cause you to just get a burnout in the game. There are people that say, I've been practicing and practicing and practicing, and my lap times are only here, and these people are their lap times up here. Um, and I found that my practice sessions are a lot better if I limit myself to 30, 40 laps at a time instead of sitting there and doing 100 plus laps trying to overanalyze any little thing that I do wrong. And it becomes even more difficult now that iRacing has developed their dynamic weather system, which, granted, might still have a couple kinks here and there. The tires react a little bit quicker than you'd think that they normally would to a cloud cover over the track. And, it's really important to throw yourself in a session that is going to allow for different things to happen. Don't set it to be only this weather type, because even though the iRacing schedule may say this race is going to be 78 degrees in the afternoon and the track temp's going to be here and the track usage is going to be here, the dynamic weather system throws a huge curveball into that game and makes it really hard to practice for any specific type of thing. The best thing you can do is do a couple shorter practice sessions through the week. I found works best for me, just so the game's going to do different things every now and then, and you know how the car is going to react as you notice changes on the track, such as the shade coming over, clouds coming over, clouds going away, the track heating up again. And it can be extremely frustrating whether you're practicing and seem to just not be able to keep it out of the wall, not keep spinning it. If someone else in a session comes into you, runs into you, things like that. It's really important to be able to keep your cool. Keeping your cool is extremely important, and I've definitely struggled with it in the past. But I'm learning as I'm more patient and make sure I'm there in the end instead of rushing and forcing three wide or something crazy like that early in the race where it's not really necessary, that my whole mindset is better throughout the course of the race. It's much less frustrating to be there for most of the race and get in an incident later on than it is to start a 200 lap NIS race and get taken out on lap 20 because you're fighting that guy that feels like he really needs to go when you could have just let him go. He's going to burn up his tires, use up his car, probably wreck himself or someone else, and that someone else is not going to be you, and make sure that you're in a much better mindset throughout the course of the race and toward the end. Being taken out is extremely frustrating, and you can get angry and you can light up the mic. You hear people bickering back and forth at each other all the time. It's really a waste of time to get that upset about it. It can be frustrating. I slip up. Everyone slips up now and then. But it's really important to learn to keep your calm as you develop your racecraft and enter in more races. I know I'm definitely not a peak antifreeze driver. I mainly focus on NIS and oval track racing, but I started with the rookie Miatas and really learned to control a car that way. And learning the characteristics of that car really transferred across to the Cup cars and things like that. Yes, they're heavier. Yes, they have more power. Yes, they have more torque. But by learning what the car is going to do, by noticing how a slower car starts to react in certain ways, I feel like has really helped me be able to control a 700-something horsepower Cup car at a road course better than half the rookies control a 100-something horsepower Miata at a road course. It's really important to learn the car characteristics of what you're focusing on and the track characteristics of where you're at. You know, there are certain parts on the track that are going to do weird things. Certain oval tracks are more frustrating in certain aspects of them. Some tracks have a weird hump coming out of corners that makes the car really light and gives people a tendency to spin. There are certain racing lines you can run. I mean, a lot of people really hop into oval and think, oh, it's just turning left, you know, you might have to brake now and then, but I mean, unless it's something like a plate track, there's a lot more to take into consideration, whether it be the cars around you, what you're doing with your car, how you're reacting to the car over the course of a run, just navigating traffic, anything like that. You'll learn that there are certain parts on certain tracks that are more keen to a high line or a low line or a mid line, and really can drive yourself to focus on those aspects of that track and how the car is going to react over the course of a run on that track. Some tracks are a lot more short run friendly depending on the setup. Some tracks are a lot better if you have your tires there at the end, because everyone wants to run the low line, but if you're running the high line early on in a race, then you're going to be saving your tires way more than everyone else. Everyone's going to be on 20-lap tires and wondering why you're blowing past them when you made the same pit stop as them or on the same pit strategy. And speaking of navigating traffic, lap traffic, that's an extremely important thing to talk about, whether it's on the road or oval side. Whether you are the lap traffic or you're trying to come to lap traffic, I know a lot of people will say, well, I held my line, and it's, according to the sporting code, it is the car on the lead lap's responsibility to navigate around the lap traffic safely. But there's arguments back and forth about this all the time. I mean, if you're 2 laps down and the leaders are coming up to you, the top 3 are coming up to you, I would recommend just getting off the racing line. Some tracks you can't really help it. If they catch you way quicker than you think and you're just trying to focus on your race and you don't have an eye on your relative screen down there, it can be difficult. It definitely can be difficult. There's a lot of take and a lot of give. I recommend that if you're lap traffic, don't have the mindset of it's the leader's responsibility to get around me. At an oval track, there are a lot of oval tracks that are one line, and you could make or break someone's race just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or just parking it on the racing line, expecting them to find a way on the slower line to get around you. Even if you are off pace, it can be extremely difficult. It can be extremely difficult being that lap traffic to find the correct spot and a suitable spot. I've been in that situation many times. I try to communicate with the leaders, hey, when you get to me, tell me where you want me to go, or I'm going to be going over here to let you guys by on this line at this part in the track. You know, communication is extremely important in that aspect. You know, lap traffic and navigating lap traffic, it's one of the hot spots in iRacing, definitely, especially when you get into an NIS race and it's 267 laps and you're 3 laps down on the racing line at Homestead or anything like that. It's really difficult, and it's a judgment call that needs to be made, and both parties need to work together there. Don't get frustrated if lap traffic is, don't be extremely frustrated if lap traffic is just sitting on the racing line. A lot of times they don't know where to go because they're trying to do what the leaders are doing. They're trying to make up time. It's frustrating being laps down. It's extremely aggravating. And just trying to figure out what they're doing, they're trying to use the same line, and they don't get that getting out of the way is the best option at that point. They're trying to keep themselves from being worse lap traffic by being worse lap traffic, if you know what I'm saying, whereas they really struggle to get themselves out of the way as they're trying to go faster and trying to improve. And a lot of that can come down to pit strategy. Pit strategy can make or break your race. the leader pits, you say, well, my tires feel all right. I'm going to see how many laps I can extend my pit stop and hope that there isn't a caution to see where I'm going to be later on in the run. Because I know personally, if I'm not leading, I never want to be the first person down pit road. I wait till I hear the spotter say the leader's pitting, and then I'll try to make it 1 or 2 more laps depending on the run that I'm on, how my tires are feeling, the strategy I feel like I need to do, and the strategy I need to make. Taking risks is extremely important. I know getting into the IMSA series and road coursing can be a little weird because every car setup basically the same. There's different strategies and things like that play into the fuel load, or I guess I should say fuel loads that pay into the strategy. So people are generally making their pit stops around the same time, and that happens a lot in the oval side as well, whereas you have multiple judgment calls to make. If you get spun out, obviously you want to pit. If you feel like you can make it last on the tires after you've been spun out, it's completely up to you whether you want to just take fuel under a pit stop, whether you want to take tires, 2 tires, 4 tires. All those things are going to play into your strategy and how your course of the race is going to go. There's just so many aspects and so many things that you can just take into account and take tips on. I would recommend taking risks. It's not real life. It's frustrating to get your race broken based off pit strategy, but it is it's also extremely rewarding when a risky pit strategy call really pays off. There are multiple resources you can use, and once you get into the open setup type deal, there's multiple setup guides out there, resources, the low-line racing guide, the VRS sets, there's Craig's setup shop. There are hundreds, well, maybe not hundreds, but there are a lot of resources, including really great people out there that are really willing to help you. If you say, hey, man, I'm really struggling, I'm wondering what you're doing, can you give me advice on where you're braking, letting off, any setup tweaks you might have made, fuel load. There's so many factors and so many things you can do to improve and learn setups and learn to really get yourself out there and into the world of tweaking on cars. And that'll just improve your race, improve your racecraft, improve your positioning. Track position is extremely important early on in the race. That's one of those big judgment calls. You say half the field's pitting. Am I going to stay out? Am I going to follow the leader down pit road? Or do I want to have a better position in case another caution comes out? Because I'm sure a lot of people know iRacing official series can be caution fest, especially when you get 200-something laps, 100-something laps, depending on the race. There's so much to go over. I'm just lightly touching on a lot of stuff that I feel like has really helped me improve. And I went from wrecking almost every race to consistent top 5s, top 10s. I've got 1 NIS win at Charlotte. It was fixed, and the track temp was 112 degrees, but I led every lap except for when it came down to green flag pit stops and everyone was cycling out. There's just so many calls to make, so many things that are happening. The car reacts differently almost every lap, it seems, with the track temp that high. Charlotte really doesn't have a lot of grip to begin with. 100-something degree track temp doesn't help. Dover's really slick. Texas, there are so many tracks that just don't have the grip level to handle the cars the way that they are, and you really have to drive the car, react to the car, what it's doing. And I'm sure some of you might be wondering, like, where do you get all this experience from? And I'm recently A class. I lost it, went down to B, got it back in a week. My I rating's only ever been above 2,000 once. This is, from an amateur standpoint, not one of the big-time guys like Ray Alfala or Jimmy Mullis, Keegan Leahy, those VRS guys, Coanda Sim Sports guys. But a lot of it carries across, and I'm sure a lot of them would say some of the same stuff. Patience is extremely important. Keeping your cool, making sure you don't let the race get away from you, making sure you're in control of your own race, not letting your mindset and any grudges you might have with anyone hinder your racing experience and your enjoyment of the sim. I'm gonna say it again. There's just so much you can touch on, so much you can say. It is really one of those things where it's going to be different for everyone else. Everyone learns at a different pace. But, I mean, there have been races where people with 6,000 iRating are struggling on a track like New Hampshire, and New Hampshire just suits my driving style. I mean, I was 1,500 iRating. I split a couple 5,000 and 6,000 iRating drivers in a race just from being patient, understanding what the car is doing, and New Hampshire and flat ovals just kind of suit me better. I'm not that great at super speedways, mile and a halfers, tracks like Daytona, things like that. I'm a terrible plate racer. And I mean, you're going to have bad weeks, you're going to have bad races, but there's just so much to learn and so much to do and so many things you can do to improve your own racing experience that it's hard to base it based off of 1 week on the sim or base it based off of 2 weeks on a sim. I got to win this week, but I'm last this week and everything like that, you know. My biggest advice is to just keep at it, keep chipping at it, keep practicing. There are times where I want to quit, sell my wheel and everything and just say, this is worthless. But, you know, I've improved a bunch in a short time, it feels like, compared to some people. And it's just by looking into these kind of tips. A lot of people say setups matter. Setups matter to a certain extent. I did read on VRS's website that they claim that a setup makes up for about 3/10 of a driver. The rest of it's usually talent and practice. So a setup can definitely help, but don't think a setup is what's making or breaking you in an open race. There are people that have very good setups and the car lasts longer or anything like that, but I mean, a setup's worthless if you can't drive the car if you're putting it in the wall every lap. Yeah, and those are just a few tips that I can say. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you do, please feel free to follow me on any social media. You know, I'm always willing to talk to people, help anyone out if I can. And I'm always looking to learn more from more experienced people. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Thank you.
Oh no, look in the mirror, it's a 5-0. I shouldn't have smoked so much weed.